If you've stopped trusting people and part of you feels guilty for it, let me say this clearly. You didn't stop trusting because you're cold. You stopped trusting because your nervous system learned a pattern, and you stopped trusting for a real reason. In the next few minutes, I'm going to name the real reasons empath loners pull back, the exact moment trust quietly dies, and the one thing you can do to rebuild your life without reopening your heart to chaos. And there's one uncomfortable truth I'll share near the end that changes everything. You don't actually fear people. You fear becoming the old version of you around people. Most empath loners don't wake up one day and decide, I want to be alone. They get trained into it. One disappointment at a time, one broken promise at a time, one moment where they realize they keep paying for connection with their peace. So let's start with the first reason empaths stop trusting. Not betrayal, not drama, inconsistency. Someone is warm, then cold, close, then distant, supportive, then dismissive. They say they care, but their behavior keeps you guessing. And if you're sensitive, your body tracks that instability faster than your mind can justify it. You start scanning, you start bracing, you start reading tone like it's a survival skill. Then people call you anxious, but often it's not anxiety, it's your intelligence responding to unpredictability. Because emotional inconsistency teaches the empath a painful lesson. Connection isn't stable here, and if connection isn't stable, your body won't relax. So you pull back, not to punish anyone, to breathe. Here's a question that will tell you if this is you. When did you start feeling safer alone than with people? Not happier, safer. That's when trust stops being a belief and becomes a risk calculation. The second reason empath loners stop trusting is emotional invalidation. This one doesn't just hurt you. It rewires you because nothing kills trust faster than being honest and being dismissed. You finally open up and you get lines like, you're too sensitive. You're overreacting. That's not what I meant. Why are you making this a problem? And after you hear that enough times, you learn a rule. Don't share. Handle it alone. Don't give people access to your soft parts. Because your truth isn't safe with them. So you become private, then independent, then hard to read. Then suddenly everyone labels you a loner. But you didn't become a loner because you don't feel. You became a loner because your feelings were treated like a burden. Let me ask you something sharp. How many times did you speak up just to be punished for being honest? At a certain point, your heart stops offering evidence to a judge that never planned to be fair. The third reason empath loners stop trusting is the quietest one, and it's the most common. Your kindness gets mistaken for permission. You give grace, and people push farther. You forgive, and people repeat it. You stay calm, and people take it as an invitation to disrespect you gently. You try to understand, and they use your understanding as a loophole. And it takes empaths a long time to admit this, because it feels ugly to say out loud. But some people don't respect kindness. They consume it. And once you see that, your whole relationship with trust changes, because trust requires reciprocity, not perfection. Reciprocity, effort coming back, care coming back, respect for boundaries. And when it stays one-sided long enough, the empath stops trusting the person. Then the empath stops trusting the whole idea of people. Now here's where it gets personal. Empath loners often didn't become deep by choice. They became deep by necessity. Many of you learned early to read the room. You learned to notice tension before it exploded. You learned to predict moods. You learned to be the peacemaker. And you became emotionally skilled, fast. But there's a cost to growing up that way. When you spend childhood managing other people's emotions, you become vulnerable to adults who expect you to do it forever. So you attract friendships where you're the therapist, relationships where you're the emotional caretaker, Dynamics where your role is to absorb, soothe, and carry. And in the beginning, it feels like love, because being needed can feel like being valued. But being needed is not the same as being loved. Love doesn't require you to shrink. Love doesn't punish your boundaries. Love doesn't make you audition for basic respect. So if you're an empath loner, a big part of why you stop trusting is because you finally saw the pattern. I keep getting close to people who make me work for what should be normal. And when you see that, your body changes its strategy. You stop rushing into closeness. You stop giving instant access. You stop telling your whole story early. You stop proving your goodness. And some people will call that cold, but it's not cold. It's careful, and careful is what happens when your heart has been overexposed. Let's lock this in because this is the center of the video. You stopped trusting for a real reason. It wasn't one moment. It was evidence. It was repetition. It was patterns that kept returning with different faces. And if you've been watching this thinking, yes, but when did it become final? It becomes final at one specific point. Trust doesn't die the moment someone hurts you. Trust dies the moment someone hurts you. You address it, and they don't care. That's when it closes, because pain is human. Mistakes happen. But indifference to your pain is information. And once your nervous system registers that information, it stops negotiating. That's why empath loners don't trust apologies easily. Not because you're stubborn, because you've heard apologies that were only designed to reset the cycle. You've heard "I'll change," followed by the same behavior. You've heard "I didn't mean it," followed by no repair. You've heard "You matter," followed by actions that said you don't. So you stop trusting language. And you start trusting evidence. You start noticing who follows through, who disappears, who respects your no, who punishes your no, who checks on you when there's nothing to gain, who only shows up when they need something. And this is where you become selective. Being selective looks like loneliness to people who don't understand healing, but it isn't loneliness, it's standards. Now here's the trap empath loners fall into after they wake up. They think the solution is to shut down completely, to become unreachable, to become numb, to become "I don't need anyone." And that can feel powerful for a while, but if you stay there too long, safety turns into a cage. So the goal isn't to trust everyone again. The goal is to trust yourself again, because most empath loners don't actually fear people. They fear their own old habits. They fear overgiving. They fear ignoring red flags. They fear becoming the therapist again. They fear getting pulled into chaos. They fear abandoning themselves. So the real question becomes this: do you trust yourself to leave the moment you see the pattern? That's the trust that changes your life. When you trust yourself, you don't need to hide from people. You just stop betraying yourself around them, and that's where your power returns. Let's make this practical and clear. Here are signs your trust didn't disappear. It got burned. You feel drained after being around certain people, even if nothing obvious happened. You feel tense around inconsistency, even when they call it busy. You feel guilty for boundaries, even when the boundary is reasonable. You replay conversations because you're searching for what you missed. You want connection, but you don't want the emotional cost. And maybe the biggest sign of all, you can feel when someone's interest in you is conditional. If you felt that, you're not crazy, you're perceptive, educational and motivational, not medical advice, but that perceptiveness is real. Now here's the clean filter that rebuilds your life without turning you into stone. Stop asking, "Do I like this person?" Start asking, "Do I feel safe being myself around this person?" Not entertained, not impressed, not excited. Safe. If the answer is no, don't argue with it. Listen to it. Because your nervous system is not trying to ruin your relationships. It's trying to protect you from repeating your old ones. And here's your action step for the next week. Stop giving instant access. That's it. Most empaths give trust too fast because you want to be fair. You want to be open. You want to believe people are good. But your heart is in a public space. So let trust be earned slowly. Match energy, match effort, match consistency. If they show up consistently, You open up gradually. If they disappear, you don't chase. If they disrespect you, you don't debate your worth. You withdraw access. And yes, guilt will show up. Because guilt is the old programming. Guilt is the part of you that thinks boundaries are cruelty. But boundaries are not cruelty. Boundaries are clarity. And clarity is what keeps your empathy from being used against you. So let's end with the truth behind your thumbnail. You stop trusting for a real reason. You stop trusting because inconsistency trained your body to brace. You stop trusting because honesty wasn't safe. You stop trusting because kindness became permission. You stop trusting because your pain kept getting dismissed. You stop trusting because you were tired of being the one who cared more. And the most important part is this: you don't need to become colder to protect yourself. You need to become clearer. Clear about what you tolerate. Clear about what you allow. Clearer about who gets access. Clearer about the moment you leave. Because the strongest empath is not the one who trusts everyone. It's the one who trusts themselves. And when you reach that point,